I want to remind anyone that's joining us by telephone, please make sure that your line is muted, and turn it over to President Field.
Good deal. I call this meeting of the Vernon Consolidated Independent School District to order. Let the record show a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called and has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Welcome. We've got two meetings tonight. This one is our budget and proposed tax rate hearing. And with that, Mr. Matt Burnett or Mr. Clay, whoever.
So I'll turn it straight to Mr. Garrett.
All righty. So we'll get into reviewing the budget, and then we'll talk about the tax rate. And as we move through this, if you have any questions, just stop me and we'll go over them. And then when we get into the regular meeting, we can move straight in and take care of the business of approving a budget and a tax rate. Shoot at you, Phil? Yes.
There.
Now it is. So we'll just start off with the main items that the school district board of trustees approves. So it is the role of the board of trustees to approve the general operating fund, interest and sinking or debt service fund, and then food service fund. 240 and 242, and we'll talk about that. 242 is the summer grab and go program that was so helpful throughout the closure and the summer. So we'll just get right out there in the beginning and give you the numbers that what we're going to look at for next year. General operating, we're looking at revenue of $34.4 million, expenses of $34.379, so a budget surplus of $25,000. So that is good news. We've come from, we had some news you remember in early May when the fast growth allotment went away. From Vernon CIC, we were looking at a deficit, so we purposefully worked the budget and were able to get it into I call it a balanced budget, but a surplus of $25,000. Debt service, surplus of $2 million, and that's going to be taken care of with another defeasance, hopefully. And then food service, unfortunately, we're looking at a $150,000 deficit, but we'll talk about those as we get to them. As we're looking at fund balance, as we go into the year, you'll see those numbers there. General operating 12.77. We are projecting $1 million increase to fund balance. Ms. Witt plugged in there 1.367, so she gave the exact number that it's showing up now, but it'll be anywhere from $1 million to 1.3 million going into fund balance, which is a surprise and good news, and we'll cover that a little bit when we do the budget amendment during the regular meeting. Current assigned fund balance of $2.175 million, and then that leaves an optimum fund balance of $8.6 million and leaves $3.367 million in above optimum, above assigned. So again, echoing the sentiments that entering uncharted territories, very unknown things in state funding, we're sitting about as good as we could hope to be heading into those areas.
Yeah, of that $2.1 million on assigned fund balance, $1 million of it is pure planning for a decrease in state funding. So not only do we have the 3.3, but we've got $1 million sitting out there assigned that the board has said, if the state cuts us, we have money to fill in that cut.
And then debt service, 647 after the large defeasance this year, and then food service, fortunately, came into COVID very healthy. And then we're looking at end of the year after assigned of 328 above optimum, which is still very, very healthy. So as we look at revenue for the coming year, the first column there is original budget for 1920, and then we'll show actual revenue. As you recall, we had enrollment growth for 1920. Attendance hit us a little bit in the late fall, early winter, but then we did rebound a bit, and then the COVID closure of the state, making good for those last 2 6 weeks that helped out. So actual revenue came in above budgeted by a significant amount, and then proposed budget for next year drops to $34.4 million. You'll see in the top property tax, tier 1 excess included. So that is part of the compression, and so House Bill 3 brought about a tier 1 compression, where a district can only generate so many amount of funds based on that initial tax rate. So It is combined with the state rolling back the compression and then the district's compression. It's basically the same as recapture. They're calling it different because it's not nearly as harmful. Recapture had these year lags to where when recapture caught you, it was gonna catch up for a couple of years. This is not, this is real time, this year, so they're never gonna take you below a certain floor, but they will not allow you to get too high above the ceiling, and that's what that, tier one excess is talking about. This budget is based on a 6% increase to the property taxes, and that is what drove some of that compression over the tier one entitlement. Talking about that tier one excess or recapture, it's $1,131,000. So the top line, you'll see there comparing tax revenue increased to 29.4, but then the state backs out 1.131. So every year the state reduces state revenue to offset additional local taxes, and it's just showing up in a different form now. But TA will treat it as recapture, and we'll have to approve the same pieces we've done in the past. Any questions on, well, here's the factors affecting revenue. We are projecting enrollment of 3,200 kiddos, and we'll give you guys a report on enrollment later, but that is what this budget is built on. The ADA projection is the same as prior year. That's saying, basically, we said what happened last year will happen this year. So enrollment and then attendance rate are gonna mirror each other from the prior year. And then state property value evaluation is equal to local. So we're basing the budget on the local certified values. In January, the comptroller comes out and kind of says yay or nay, if those values they feel are within the interval. We have a year grace because we passed that. So even if the state says no, they're not high enough, they'll give us a year grace to not have to take state values. Any questions on revenue? Yes, sir.
So, the assigned fund balance here is a little bit higher than what you have in the financials you submitted, by 10,000.
Yes, that is, so we included assigned plus inventory and prepaid. Good catch. So there's some other accounting assets in there. It should just add up.
Yes, and then also it looks like the optimum fund balance has increased, and is that based on the 3-month expenses that you had?
Correct. The increase in what a month of expenditures is. Great questions.
And so the question about the recapture, so the 2.4 from state revenue.
Yes, sir.
Would actually, they would have sent another 1.1 with it, but they're subtracting it out? Is that what it reads?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that did remind me, I jumped right past, when you have a negative 82% on a line item, that's somewhat significant on other locals, and that's interest revenue. So we were trucking along, doing well, and one of the reasons we did good on this year's budget is because of the interest revenue at the beginning of the year. This year, that number clearly has hit the floor. There also is a reduction in any gate receipts. We went in and basically cut all gate receipts 50%, and then we got rid of any rental income. So we don't have significant revenue in that area, but there is some. So then we'll move on to the expenditure side of the budget. Things that this budget includes are the 2% midpoint pay increase for all staff, market-driven stipend increases, increased health insurance contribution, keeping up with, so our employee only is free to all employees, and then some new positions that the board approved in the spring. And as a reminder, those positions were addressed kind of in 3 different areas: student-teacher ratio, behavior support, and campus support. So there are the items that were added to support those different areas in the school district. Any questions on those? And also in the budget, these are items that were in there in the past, or they stayed in there. The ICE funds, instructional classroom enhancement, we were able to roll those back out last week, and And we had a lot of teachers taking advantage of that already. I think we had 15 orders. I sent an email around 10:30, about 1 o'clock, there were 15 requests, so the teachers were sitting waiting, so thankfully we did push it out. The subs for ARDS and 504 meetings, and then the teacher shuttle. It's really great, advantages we can offer teachers and their families to help them be there. We're lucky to have them on campus early in the morning and serving us, so we appreciate them and happy to offer that service. 5-year projection, we've talked since the last 2-3 years that the important thing in school finance is to look ahead and to have a plan. And so that plan involved, we weren't going to bring a deficit budget to you guys this year going into uncertainty. We have the $1 million assigned fund balance for whatever comes around the corner. And then unfortunately, uncertain future state revenue. So that's not a great 5-year plan, but at least we know there is uncertainty coming. And we have those other two things. We're starting off even, and then we have $1 million to if things get really bad, we don't have to take immediate action. Well, we may have to take immediate action, but we can give time to roll it out and not affect programs or hopefully salary or personnel.
The legislative session kicks in January, and then COVID. So those are two just huge rocks that it's hard to predict out what's gonna come. We know that we're $4 billion in the hole as a state right now, and so they're gonna have to close that gap somehow. And so we're all expecting that across the board, everyone's gonna feel some amount of reduction in revenue.
Yeah, and House Bill 3, wasn't it like $9 billion towards that? And so that's the scary part, is how they're gonna keep funding that the next finance.
And they keep, on all the conference calls that Dr. Jones and I are on, they keep talking about certain pieces that, oh no, that's safe, it's not gonna get cut, and I'm like, that math doesn't add up. You can't keep saying, I'm gonna protect this, and then balance the state budget. So I think you're right, it'll be very interesting conversation.
And one thing they did, as school people, we say they did right with House Bill 3, is they set that into formula law. And so it's not just, they can't just take it away. They have to change the roots of state funding to make changes. So doesn't mean they can't, but they will have to be responsible and kind of rewrite the thing to figure it out. But if the money's not there, hopefully they find it from somewhere. So here's a bunch of list of items and numbers, kind of the details of the budget. I'd offer any feedback on those. The function 13, you'll see decreased 22%, and function 31 increased 11%, and that was a kind of in the restructuring of instructional coaches and all these different pieces, and figuring out how to code all those different areas. So it's the same amount of money in the whole scheme. We were just moving some of the areas around. I love it when you read like function 61, 17% increase, but it went from 3,500 to 4,100. Debt service, that is the maintenance tax. So we talked about debt service out of interest and sinking fund. This is the general fund payment of debt. And then you'll see recapture tier 1 excess in function 91. And so it shows a 7% increase in expenditures. That is not a true representation because we added 1.1 million in recapture. So we did not add 7% to this year's budget, well under that, in fact. There is just that representation and a pie chart. Did that for Robbie since he complimented me last time that he got here. But there's those same numbers in that same pie chart. And here's the look at the different objects. So we've said in the past, function is the area that it takes care of, instruction, classroom, transportation. The object code is what the expense is, payroll, contracted services. And so this is a breakdown of those areas and the change in the different object codes. And there's the pie chart to represent the percentage of those areas that makes up the budget. You'll see 78% payroll in the general operating fund. A lot of districts and us as well, that number, you'll hear 82%, a lot higher payroll. we use a significant amount of our federal monies to pay payroll and salaries, so that is not included in this amount. So that would, if we did all funds, that payroll would be closer up to 81%. And there is the general operating proposed budget manager allotment. I will tell you that this year, building a budget during COVID and with secretaries and all the important people not here, we didn't try to overcomplicate this. So we basically rolled forward everyone's allotment from the prior year. And then if they had any significant special needs, we told them we would consider them. And I'm happy to say, well, other folks may not agree, but I'm happy to say we didn't have any requests for increases in any of the budget allotments. So everybody's making do with what they have, and we appreciate that.
Are those, figures per child?
Yes, ma'am. They absolutely are, yes, ma'am. And that, when we rolled it forward, we did change it, so per child allotment stayed the same. And we have initiated, in case you're wondering, RJ Ritchie 2 years ago had, I think they lost 100 kids just based on class sizes. At that point, we instituted no campus would lose more than $1,000 in one shot. And just because a lot of that is programs that aren't based on student numbers. And I think that has been helpful to help them manage shifts in class sizes. That is the summary of the general fund budget. And going back, so your revenue and exceeds expenditures by $25,000. The total budget for expenditures is $34,379,000. So someone asked, the easy answer is $34.5 million. General fund expenditure budget right in the sweet spot there with a $25,000 surplus, but basically a balanced budget. Any question on any of the general fund areas? We'll move on then to the debt service budget, and you'll see there is a significant surplus. Oh, that's food service. Debt service, significant surplus with plans. Appreciate the board taking the action, and we got the defeasance settled last week, and now moving in with a full intent of another defeasance this coming fiscal year to continue to pay down that debt. And then the little note at the bottom, this is, y'all have not adopted a tax rate yet, but these are the tax rates that we will be bringing to you guys to approve later on. Food service budget, this is a day-by-day thing in how we're serving foods this year, where every child gets every item. It is a challenge to keep a balanced budget, because even when my knucklehead son has no intention of eating any broccoli, we have to give him the full serving of broccoli, and trying to do our best to not get a lot of food thrown away, but to keep safely serve the kiddos. That is the approach we've taken, and they're doing a great job of it. So we're showing a $150,000 deficit, but we'll see what we can do with that, and we'll be sure to send you reports as the year progresses, and try to do our best to limit the damage. The food service department has also picked up a lot of the cleaning in the lunchroom area. They are the ones wiping down the tables and that stuff. So we did increase some hours on some of those staff as well. So custodial could concentrate on the other learning areas on the campus.
And I will tell you, I mean, we purposely did that, and our food service ladies, especially at elementary, are rock stars. I mean, I'm watching them, you know, serve food, deliver food to the tables, wipe tables down in between. I mean, they're just doing a tremendous job. But that did allow the custodial service to then, during the day, to be wiping down, and you think, well, yeah, that's really happening. Today, during DAC, we had a teacher say how nice it is to see in the middle of the day a custodian spraying down desks or wiping down areas, and we've rearranged people's time so that that can happen during the day during COVID.
If no questions on the budget, we'll move into the tax rate. We're proposing a tax rate of $1.1463 per $100 valuation. Maintenance and operation 9513. That is the state rollback rate. So the district, if we wanted to raise the M&O rate any, it would require voter approval, and going for an election. So we are recommending, taxing at that rollback rate. You'll recall, we did a projection in July, you guys proposed a different amount. This was the projection that we had, and then we did get TA to verify that in late July, and rolling forward with the 9513. And then interest and sinking fund, keeping that at the same rate of 19.5 cents. There's a significant reduction in M&O side, and we're gonna take in another good shot at the defeasance, keeping that INS rate where it is at 19.5. There's the tax rate over time. You know, we've been working and decreasing since that bond in 2014, and we're now well below that. And Keith said this morning, I think it's safe to say now that this is the lowest tax rate in the history of Vernon TISD, and I would agree with that. I know in looking, we had to go look up some areas for the maintenance tax note, and I was in the 60s, and it was well above $1.50 back then already. So I do believe it is the lowest tax rate in the history of the school district.
And 5 years in a row of lowering the tax rate. And we'll see what the city does. If the county maintain their tax rate flat, even though they're bringing in more money. In the city, they're talking about keeping it flat, but maybe coming back and lowering it by 0.5 cent. So you're lowering it by 3.9 cents, if you take action tonight with this proposal.
And school districts have a state funding component, so when our local taxes go up, our state funding goes down. The cities and counties do not have that. It is solely based on that local revenue. And there's our tax rate district comparison, and still, leading the area except for Llano, but still $1.15 compared to our neighbors, $1.36, $1.40. So, the Board of Trustees have done an excellent job of keeping that tax rate at a workable amount to the taxpayers while keeping excellent flexibility for future bonds or whatever could possibly come down the line. And that is all I have for the budget and tax rate hearing. I'd be happy to take any additional questions.
And that would include anyone on the telephone or anyone in the audience. Yeah, that's it. No, comments, questions? Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Board prepared to move into the next meeting?
Can we start early?
Actually, it was called for 6:15, so I actually took a few more extra minutes. So we're gonna start off our regular meeting like we always do, and that's with prayer. And so, Michael Barnard, student pastor for Hood Country Fellowship this year. Please, start us off with our invitation. Thank you for being here and doing this.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this evening and the chance to gather together. I thank you for each and every person in this room, these leaders and servants. I thank you so much for their service to our community. I thank you that school is back in session and the sense of normalcy that brings to our community. We just thank you so much for that opportunity. I pray that you would be with the people in this room as they make decisions moving forward in this school year. I pray that you would just give them wisdom and discernment. Lord, we lift up our students to you, our campuses, all of our staff. Just pray that you would keep them safe in these trying times. Just thank you again. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
All right, pledges of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All righty. call this meeting of the Vernon Consolidated Independent School District to order. Let the record show a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called and posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. All right, welcome everyone to our regular August, board meeting. Are they still there in network land?
They are. We have, I think, principals and, Michelle Gilmore, Director of Human Resources, and
Glad to have you all here, for sure. Mr. Mike Burnett, do we have any, open forum?
we do not.
Request?
Just check, we do not.
All right, we got the floor.
Thank you. That brings us to communications and reports, and the first item is a report on operational and instructional issues related to COVID-19 and the reopening of schools in the fall. So we just have a few items we want to talk to you about. I had shared with you earlier in written communication that UIL did reach out to us today, and they commended our student athletes and coaches, our band, our drill team, our cheerleaders for their job in social distancing and wearing facial coverings during the competition. But they clearly indicated that our fans needed to do a better job in social distancing and wearing facial covering. And so we want to continue to have academic and athletic competitions in the district and across the state. And UIL has indicated that they don't want to, but that could be something that they could end up choosing to cancel athletic and academic competition if they do not see better compliance with the facial covering rule and the social distancing. One of the things that we're having discussions about and we'll be formalizing in time for our next varsity football game will be actually lowering the number of tickets that we'll have available. We're on the home side. I believe we're going to go from 1,500 down to 1,100 tickets, and then on the home visitor side, we'll go from 700 to 500 tickets. That will allow us then to block off every other row in the stadium. We'll also be doing the same work in our gymnasiums, going through and blocking off rows and reducing the number of tickets available for each one of those competitions so that we can hopefully have a better showing in our fans in terms of spreading people out when it comes to Friday night football and, of course, at volleyball too. So we want to make sure that we're social distancing and wearing facial coverings across the board in all of our competition. And then we're also going to be doing some education, sending information out to our parents in the community. We're recruiting some of our athletes to do some public service announcement saying that they're wearing a mask or they're social distancing for their teammates, but they also want our fans to do that so that we can complete an entire season. So we'll be putting out information like that. So, other than that, if you're like me, boy, being there Friday night, that was something else. It felt good to be back at the field and watching our kids compete, and actually had someone who had never been to Vernon before sitting on the sidelines next to me, and it was fun to watch them be so excited because they had never been in a small town environment like that. And it reminds you how special it is and how lucky we are to be in a community and to experience it. So we'll be providing more information as we firm up some of our new processes and procedures. But UIL is clearly watching. So the live stream event, they were watching all of the live stream events and taking notes on which teams and what stadiums were. And in reality, pretty much across the board, the social distancing and the mask wearing was an issue at almost every venue. So we're not alone. And in fact, again, UIL bragged on the students that we had control over actually did an outstanding job. Clay, you want to report on enrollment?
Yes, sir. So we just got through talking about the budget that was built on a enrollment of 3,200, and that's where we were projecting kind of ended last year. I know Keith has been sending you guys updates on how that enrollment is doing, and currently we sit today at 3,078, And so that is an improvement from 1 week ago, we were at 3,028. So the campuses have been working hard and doing an excellent job of contacting folks and getting those no-shows in the district and back into schools. That 3,078 is a reduction of 122 kiddos. In over a year, that would be $1.08 million, so $1,080,000. Fortunately, we have the 2 6-week hold harmless, and so we're kind of getting these first 2 6 weeks free on the state. And so if we back out that's 33% of the year. So if we add in 67%, we would be looking at a reduction in revenue of $725,000 for this year. So we're hoping that enrollment keeps inching up, and we have about 10 more weeks or whatever it is to the end of the second 6 weeks to try to get there. But I commend the principals and the campuses. They've been working hard in many different ways, but in trying to get those kiddos into school has been successful thus far.
And we backed it up to 3,200 for budget purposes, but from a demographic projection standpoint, without COVID, we were expecting 3,295 this year. And so, again, kind of saw the trend coming and backed up our budget number to an enrollment of 3,200. And an example of campuses working hard, high school is down to 8 kids that they haven't identified where they're at right now. And so for accountability purposes at the high school level and the middle school level, by the end of September, we have to identify any kid that was with us and where they went. So we have to be able to say that they went to homeschool, or they enrolled in another Texas school, or they enrolled out of state, so that we don't get dinged on accountability for a dropout. And it's not an issue that's just Burnett CISD. We're seeing a decrease in enrollment across the entire state. Michelle Gilmore was just recently on an HR conference call, and I think, Pflugerville IC, which is much bigger than us, but I mean, they have over 1,000 students that haven't shown up that they were expecting to be there on the first day of school. And so I think everyone is dealing with that, especially maybe the pre-KK students. A lot of people are saying, I'm just going to keep my kids at home right now, since pre-KK is not a mandatory grade level.
How's Bertram doing with capacity?
And they're actually doing well. So they're actually a little bit under where we had them at the beginning of the projection, the demographic projection. Michelle Gilmore is on our conference line, and you want to share what numbers we reported to the state today for the first time as part of the TEA and DISH's state reporting system?
Yes, sir. So just like Keith mentioned, the state has just now pushed out a new reporting portal that all districts are going to have to report on every Monday. So we're reporting from the previous week. So one of the things that we're actually doing as well, just to kind of keep everybody informed, we're also publishing this to everybody on our BCISD website. So from the beginning of school until this past Friday is the information that we reported. So at Burnett High School, we had one positive COVID-19 case. At Bertram Elementary School, we had one positive COVID case. Both of those were students. At Shady Grove, we had one staff member test positive. Out of those, we had 12 close contacts. So that, again, is the information that was reported to the state. And then, again, we've also have that under the school year 2021, and it's titled COVID-19 Public School Case Reporting. We'll also be, of course, sending that to you every Friday in a board note as well.
Thank you, Michelle. And then last note that we have planned is from Dr. Jones, and that is a discussion about those students that want to switch from remote learning back to in-person learning.
Yeah, so in the midst of running both remote and in-person instruction, which our campuses have, it's a huge tall order, and they're working so hard to do. We've also fielded a lot of phone calls from families who chose to remote, or, we didn't hear from them, and so we let them know we're planning for you to be remote unless we hear from you. But many who chose remote and have gotten into it and said, this isn't what I can't do this after all. A few of them is because their internet is spottier than they realize. There are some who have legitimate, family crisis, and we're making some exceptions for those, but then others who just, my child misses their friends and wants to come back. And so as part of the agreement, that we made with them, August 6th is when that locked in for the first 6 weeks, because we know that lots of people want to come to campus and be in person. That requires major logistical planning, especially to accomplish the distancing that we can. It could cause a rebalancing of some classrooms. Although the students are sitting on a roster and we know the numbers that it will look like, there might not be a physical seat for them in the room until we know that they're coming back. And so tomorrow, we plan to roll out communication to families that they can declare that they want to come back for the second 6 weeks, which begins on September 28th. We'll have an electronic form that they can fill out. Let us know that they want their child returned as a place where they click. I understand that I won't have a schedule till September 28th. Can't return next week, but that will allow us some time to prepare for them to come back, so we know what we're really looking at. We think it's going to be a massive number who want to come back, and I think a lot of that is attributed to the work of our campuses, because they've heard really positive things from their friends and neighbors that in-person school has gone well, and so their child wants to be back. And so that form will remain open until close of business on September the 11th, and that is 2 weeks prior to the start of the second 6 weeks. So we'll have 2 full weeks to know what those students, which students will be coming back. So we'll send that out by email. We'll have the link posted to that electronic form. And when they do come back, we know that there will be some places on campus that distancing is going to be a real issue. Whenever you add that many students back onto a campus, our buildings won't accommodate 6 feet apart all day long in every situation. No school in the U.S. does. We just weren't designed to be that way. And so that's going to also give us time to look at classrooms really intentionally and see, do we need to do further furniture removal? Do we need to, have any other measures? By the 28th, well, certainly well before that, but we'll have some partitions in our cafeterias. And so that's going to help, because those partitions will be in place by that time, so that we can, if we can't have them 6 feet apart, we can have other measures to keep them as safe as we possibly can.
Or any COVID-related questions in school, instructional, operational?
I just have a question, because I know some of the, Austin and like me and doing the phasing. At any point have y'all talked about when we're gonna stop remote, or are we just always gonna give it as a choice?
Well, so what the state has let us know is that if we would like to have those students enrolled, and counting in our attendance, that we must offer remote. If we as a district decide to not offer remote instruction, then we are telling families that if they choose to not be in person, they must be an inter-district transfer somewhere else that does offer remote. And so public schools have to offer families a choice, and if you're not going to get the choice, the family can choose to go someplace else that does. And so far, our stance has been, we would really like to retain our students, because this will be over someday, and we want for them to still be with us. And so if the numbers are dramatically different months from now, we might look at how we reorganize some of the work of remote learning. But right now, the plan is that we would continue to have the option for families who are very strongly opposed to coming back in person for whatever reason.
I mean, just, 20% of our student population is about 600. I mean, if we go from 30% remote down to 20%, if we gave that many students up, it would be just financially devastating.
A lady on our staff at church this morning shared, we do a staff meeting on Monday morning, and she just said she has no children in school, no family here, but very well connected, and she said, all I'm hearing is just praise and kudos. So tell everybody at the board meeting tonight on the staff that what she's hearing is really, really good. And they're very, very, very pleased and just feel good about what's going on safety-wise as well as instructional. So just from a unsolicited kudo there.
That is good to hear, and I just will tell you, our staff is working really hard. This is, you know, this has been challenging, and everyone has stepped up to do more work, because of everything we're having to do to get safe and to make sure that we're meeting the educational, that's very nice.
It's like having entire buildings full of first-year teachers.
Yep.
Because everyone is doing everything for the first time, and so it's
And first-year administrators.
Yes, we're all first years too. Everyone is working so hard, and it's going to keep getting better incrementally, but it's hard to see day to day, so thank you for sharing that.
And next up would be financial reports. Gary.
Yes, sir. Y'all are gonna hear me talk a lot tonight, so I'll be brief on the financial reports. On page 6, you'll see that, our, monthly financial report is at 89.6%. And so you heard me mention earlier that we're gonna put $1 million into fund balance, and this would show part of that reason. We should be at 91.6% at this time. And so that 2% is $660,000. So there are significant savings in function 13, which is staff development, function 36, extracurricular. So a lot of that is travel and trips that got shut down, you know, middle of March through the end of the school year. So we did end up seeing, we talked about savings in the spring when we shut down. So we are going to realize a significant amount of savings for COVID. But as we just discussed in enrollment and state funding, that money is certainly going to come in handy as we move into the future. Next item is on the tax collections. I just want to point out we're at 97.65% of collections. Typically, we would be at 100% by now. That's still a good number. We budget at 98%, but just an FYI that some of those collections are out there, and still fully confident we're going to get those collections. But what that does mean is we could see an increase in prior year tax collections next year, which would increase the revenue of the budget for upcoming year. And with every delinquent tax comes penalty and interest. So that could increase some of the revenue in the future. The next item I would just want to touch on briefly was the utility report. And I appreciate Charlie doing some digging on this. One of the big ones, Shady Grove Elementary's water usage was up a ton, from 33,000 gallons to 298,000 gallons. And there was a leak deep down in the ground, and that there was really almost no way we could know about it. And we thank the city of Vernon. They reached out to us and said, hey, you got some pretty good water pumping through the Shady Grove gauge. So we have since, I think last weekend, we had someone come up and work Saturday to get the water shut off and get that repaired. So that has been fixed. And then there are 3 to 4 electricity and water usages where we must have had a good year last July, August, because they're up this year, but they're about the same as 2018. So I don't remember a cool, wet July last year, but maybe I just missed it because the utility numbers were down last summer, and this year we're getting back to normal. So that was the explanation for those different items. But that's all I have for the financials.
That concludes the communications report.
Wow, nobody's list yet. Gets us to consent agenda. Information on these items has been sent to the Board of Trustees for review prior to the meeting. Any board member may pull any item from the consent agenda without a second. Any item pulled will be considered with the action items on the agenda. Okay, those items are board minutes, expenditures in excess of $25,000, and request from Burnet County Agri-Life Extension Service to have adjunct staff member status for 2021. Kind of routine there. So, what's your pleasure?
I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second. All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried then. All right, getting into business items. Item A is discussion and possible action regarding approval of district goals and district campus improvement plans. Dr. Jones.
All right, page 43 of your, board book contains the summary item of a very long agenda item. And so, each year, the school board, and districts across the state approve goals and performance objectives for district improvement plans and campus improvement plans. Each campus plan reflects the 5 goals for the district. Those are listed on page 46. Campus committees convene to provide formative reviews 4 different times through the year, well, 3 times, and then 1 summative in May. And so the campus plans are developed with input from teachers, from other stakeholders on their committees. The district also has an advisory committee that reviews the district improvement plan periodically. The district plan begins on page 44, the Burnett High School plan on page 71, West High School plan on page 89, Burnett Middle School on page 101, RJ, page 117, Bertram, page 133, and Shady Grove, page 153, should you wish to look at any of those. And our campus principals are on the phone if you have any questions or comments about their plan.
I would just say good job with everything else going on, and then to be able to get in there and knock these out and get some good quality stuff put in there, for the year. So, just good job.
Y'all are there, right?
Well, I told them to mute their phone, they might not be muted. Don't get unmuted.
Those will require approval.
I move approval of the district campus improvement plans as presented.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to, approve the district and campus improvement plans as presented. Any comments or questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, ma'am. Next is item B.
Thank y'all.
There we go.
Casey wanted credit.
Mark me remote present.
All right, item B is discussion and possible action regarding approval of House Bill 3, goals for early childhood and college and career and military readiness. Once again, Dr.
Thank you. Well, this was a gift from the 2019 legislative session, that went into effect, and TEA did allow for postponement of adoption of these goals, instead of doing it in the height of COVID season, this past spring and summer. So House Bill 3 requires very specific 5-year, incremental goals in 3 specific areas: early childhood literacy, early childhood mathematics, and college, career, and military readiness. We don't get to choose what the metrics for, these goals are. They are tied to state accountability. So all of the early childhood goals must feed toward the 3rd grade STAR, and then the college, career, military readiness feeds toward the measured certificates and college readiness standards that are in the state accountability system. We chose to include 2nd grade, so the state requires 3rd grade for the early childhood. The administration is recommending including 2nd grade, primarily because we have a campus that is pre-K through 2. And so to have goals that we are accountable for in grade 3, but are not articulated at least to grade 2, could provide a lot of alignment disconnect. And so you will see a 2nd grade goal here that we're recommending for approval, down to 2nd grade. These are intentionally not aspirational goals. So these are not the goals that make your heart feel wonderful and where you hope to be. We would love to overshoot these goals. These goals are a floor because if a teacher is not meet these goals, the campus must provide very strategic, high-quality staff development. And so we were very careful in developing these goals with our campus principal feedback so that it was attainable, so that it was a push, but that it was attainable. So again, we would love to exceed these goals. Note whenever you see these that you'll see a lot of NA on 2020, and that's because we didn't have STAR testing. All of the accountability measures were delayed. And so to see what our starting point was in 2019, that's in the title statement at the top, rather than in the 2020 box. But then these goals would take us out through 2024 with some targets by subpopulation, by goals for the next 5 years.
So the number that's in here is the percent increase that you're seeing, like for 2021, that number is what you're trying to attain so that you get to the ultimate goal in 2024?
Yes, yes.
And I'll editorialize and just say that I appreciate these goals and I appreciate the work that's gone into them, and I hope that we do not have a state accountability system this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Make the motion, the approval of the House Bill 03 goals for early childhood and college career and eligibility readiness.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approval, House Bill 3, goals for early childhood and college, career, and military readiness. Any comments or questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, item C is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of BCISD 2020-2021 remote instructional plan.
All right. It's hard to believe that it was only on July 2nd when we first heard the word asynchronous from CEA, but that was less than 2 months ago, and in 2 months' time, our staff have come together and made a massive shift. And so the plan that is brought to you tonight is a lot of repeated information that has been rolled out in bits and pieces as it was designed. You know, parent pieces that we sent out, staff instructions that we would send out just as it was designed, but here it's pulled together in one plan. So the state does require us to submit this plan to them for approval. They gave us until October to get this plan to them with provisional approval. However, we felt strongly about preparing that plan early so that if they gave us feedback and had any recommendations for revisions, that we could do that early and not have a large shift for our families who are already used to one system. And so that's why we're bringing it tonight for early submission and hopefully early feedback from the state so that we can implement any changes as quickly as we can and make those adjustments for families. As I shared, almost all of this plan was released ahead of time. For example, page 195, those elements are currently sitting on the district website. And on page 200, the teacher focus groups helped develop those courses with on-campus time, and those courses are sitting on the website for parent review. On page 203, you'll see that we've included the special programs department, thinking about how our instructional materials would work together for our students with special needs as well as our general ed students. Page 204 and 205 with attendance, that is currently a beat that our campuses are working through because we know students have until midnight to be kind of present. And so, for example, the flow chart that you see there, well, that was handed out by principals to their staff early last week. And so all of these items, for the most part, have been sent out to staff along the way. So it's not that we're putting a plan together after instruction has started, but we've pulled it together in one place. And one of my favorite parts of this, I shouldn't say favorite, remarkable part, is on page 210, and it was a trip down memory lane of all the communication and all of the pieces that happened this summer to be able to try to pull off remote instruction when no one had ever done it before, at the same time that we provide in-person instruction. So TEA, and we'll wait, they will grade us on a rubric. So they do have a rubric, and you must make at least a 70% on their rubric in order to have your attendance be funded. And so we definitely want to do that and, have any feedback that they have or any requirements that we need to change in order to make that happen as quickly as we can.
For the approval of the remote instructional plan for submission to the TPA.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the remote instructional plan for submission to the, TEA as presented. Comments, questions?
I have a question. In several places you have recommended synchronous for optimum learning, so are you hoping that they'll allow that, or?
Oh, we know TEA will allow it, it's just that some of our families can't do it every day. And so we're recommending to the family that if you can make it, this would enhance your learning. But especially for kids who might be coming to campus for an extracurricular and then they're commuting home, they might not always be able to make that synchronous opportunity. They might have to try to find another time to catch up. Or if they are sharing a device and they can't always do that. So it's a recommendation from us to families. TEA has no synchronous requirements at all if you submit an asynchronous plan. It is up to the district to design what you think is reasonable.
And then when do you expect to hear back once we submit our plan?
I don't know. I don't think it'll be very long because they have already approved some plans. But the longer we go, I think the more backlogged their review will get. They looked at the early plans, so they've not given us really a time frame at all.
Any more comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D is discussion and possible action regarding, to approve the adoption of the 2020-2021 school year. My glasses don't hold on to this mask too long.
Yes, sir. And so this action item is to approve the budget that we discussed earlier. The board acts on the general operating, food service, and debt service funds. And the page past the action item is actually the budget that you will be approving at a function level. So if there aren't any questions, I'd be happy to hear your, motion.
I move to approve to adopt the 2020-2021 school year budget as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the 2020-2021 budget as presented. Any comments or questions? Tough year, looks good.
Yes, sir.
If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E is discussion and possible action, to approve resolution adopting the tax rate for 2020-2021. Mr.
Yes, sir. So one of the first things they teach you as a school business person is you adopt the budget, the board adopts the budget, and the board adopts the tax rate to fund that budget. Like, we have all that much say anymore in what the tax rate we adopt with all the restrictions. But, we went over the tax rate earlier. You guys proposed a rate of $1.1714, just to make sure TEA agreed with our numbers, and they did, and gave us a rollback rate, a total rate of $1.1463, which is a reduction, 3.3% negative. This is that old formula, a negative 3.3% increase to the tax rate. But, we, have that tax rate for your approval.
I move to approve the M&O property tax increase by adoption of a tax rate of $1.1463.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to, approve the adoption of a tax rate of $1.1463, which is in effect a negative 3.3% increase. That's not even good English.
They force those numbers people to do.
Did I announce that about the same way you said it? Any comments or questions? Really, that's not right. no questions, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item F is discussion and possible action regarding approval to accept, now this is another one, a no new revenue tax rate and rollback tax rate for the 2020 earning.
Yes, sir. So, the House Bill.
Several times backwards and
We get some trouble. The House Bill 3 introduced a new tax rate calculation called the no new revenue tax rate, which, to give them credit, they did simplify it a little bit. And this is replacing the effective tax rate of old. And basically, it's the rate that the district, if we approve a rate higher than this, it would generate new revenue. And so this is the no new revenue tax rate. So, and that tax rate calculated to be, $1.1985. So we are not adopting a tax rate that created new revenue. So we are following the no new revenue tax rate. So that's $1.1985, and then this year's rollback tax rate, which is the 2.5% compression that the state calculates for us, and that rollback rate is $1.1463, which is the rate you guys just approved. And so we did not exceed the rollback rate, so will not trigger a rollback election. Any questions?
I move acceptance of the no new revenue and rollback tax rates for 2020.
Ross, say. All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to, accept the no new revenue and rollback rate for, 2020 as presented.
Question. I don't understand why this needs to be adopted. I mean, what is this doing essentially?
So this is you guys, it's you guys, me presenting to you and you guys saying, yes, we did not exceed that rollback rate, and then the no new tax rate just has to be posted that we did calculate.
So it's the approval that we didn't exceed the no new revenue.
So it's you guys approving.
The old effective rate.
Correct. It is the old effective rate.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that.
I didn't understand it.
I don't feel bad. All right, any more comments or questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Get this to item G is discussion and possible action regarding acceptance of the certified appraisal roll for the tax year 2020.
And this is another good question of why in the world do we have to do this? But, you just adopted a tax rate and we've received the certified tax roll from the tax office. And so this is approving the tax rate you approved and the certified values, and that presents the levy, the 2020 tax year levy, which, the tax office is charged with collecting. So you'll see the next page shows the calculation of the actual levy of $35,224,462.
So you received the certified copy from Burnett, Llano, and Williamson County.
Yes, sir.
And so those are those numbers there.
Yes, sir. And then we add our tax rate, produce the levy, and then the frozen levy is added to it.
What might help is adding those to the board book next time. I think that would.
Were they not added?
Huh? I didn't see them. I mean, you got the numbers there, but not the certified.
Got it.
Not that I don't believe you.
Understood. Absolutely, yes, sir. You never know. A lot of numbers for 1 month. You mean the letters from?
Yeah, just the letter that
Yes,
says,
sir.
this is the certified number,
Great idea.
because you're saying this is certified, and
Yes, sir.
we're approving it without seeing it. I think it's my only,
I agree, 100%.
again, I believe you, but the way it's reading, it's certified, and we don't know that.
Got it. I will
Is that
send
okay,
you,
Keith? Okay, that's cool.
I will, and I can email the issues out tomorrow morning.
I'll move to approve the 2020 certified appraisal roll levy as presented.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded, to approve the 2020, certified appraisal roll as presented. Any more comments or questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, item H is discussion and possible action regarding approval of the fourth quarter budget amendment for the 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Gary.
Yes, sir. So at your seat, you have this one pager for the final budget amendment for 1920. The far right-hand column, identifies some of the larger items that drove for this budget amendment. Number one is the CARES Act for Function 11. We have shared with you guys that, as you know, the federal CARES Act is getting given to the districts in place of state revenue. So we are gonna take all of those funds out of Function 11, so it did allow for a reduction in Function 11 expenditures. Function 31, we had to add some additional funds for assessment staff, special programs, assessment areas, especially during COVID, where a lot of the contracting had to occur. We did have to add money for that item, for those, services. The nurse, so the TEA provided PPE, and so when TEA gives or provides things to the districts, we still have to book it accounting wise. We book an expense, but we also book a revenue. And so it's showing up as, us getting it as revenue and then expensing it, like we bought it from the state, but we did not have money flow. Function 34, semi-truck and digital radio system. It's one that you guys approved late last year, early in the fall, that never made its way in a budget amendment, and I apologize for that. That is the intent of the quarterly budget amendments, and it just slipped by me. And so we have those two items added. Food service, the general fund has to pay off any charges that remain at the end of a school year for food service. That is picking up that piece. And then 403 benefits, our food service staff receives those same matching funds all other employees do, but federal money can't be used for that. RJ Ritchie flood mitigation and repair under Function 51, that's the water fountain flood, last May. And then the final one, just a small increase in tax appraisal based on increases in taxes. Then the defeasance, that is approving the budget for the defeasance that you guys approved last meeting. And then the final line is the huge summer feeding program that the district took place in, showing that feeding happened, approving the expense of it. And then that program was very successful, thanks in large part to the hard work of our staff. And it was able to generate some funding to help offset the loss in funding that the regular 240 fund had. So we are showing there transferring $70,000 from the summer program to replace the loss that the regular food service program had to face during the closure for COVID. Then you'll also see, we are very thankful for a August 31st meeting that helps ease the stress of a business office, adopting a final budget with weeks for Charlie to continue to spend money. But we still added a 1% contingency just in case something shows up or pops up that didn't quite make it to the business office, to make sure we are in compliance and have all budgeted expenditures covered. In the past, we did a 2% contingency, so we are tipping our hat to the late August meeting, but not willing to roll the dice completely on that one. So any questions on the budget amendment?
But maybe just a reminder to them why. So when an auditor comes, they're looking at the budget from a function level to make sure that there's money in the function, at the function level to pay for things within that function.
Absolutely, thank you. So the auditor, and if the auditor finds something, say, you know what, y'all should have coded that out of Function 12. This gives us some, because they could do that, and then we'd be out of compliance if we didn't have you guys approve enough expenditures in each of those function levels.
Move for the approval of the fourth quarter budget amendment for the 2019-20 school year budget.
Second.
All right, thank you, Motion been made and seconded to approve the 2020 certified appraisal roll levy as presented. No comments?
Fourth quarter budget.
For quite a bit.
Did I read them? I'm sorry. I've got 2 pages here and I flipped one and didn't know. Okay, fourth quarter budget amendment, pardon me, for the 1920 school year budget. Any comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, item I is discussion and possible action regarding approval of election service contracts and joint election agreements with Burnett, Llano, and Williamson County.
Yes, sir. So this goes back to, you guys approved the calling of the election for Board of Trustees at the 3 different counties last month. This is the final contracts and agreements with each of those counties for them to provide the election services. And I think Sharon, was able to wrangle all these together and get a bunch of busy election officials to pay attention to the little Burnett CISD. But she has them all there, and this will be the final approval for us to be ready to roll for November.
I'll make the motion for the approval of the election services contracts and joint election agreements with Burnett, Llano, and Williamson County.
All right, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. To approve the election services contract and joint election agreements with Burnett, Llano, and Williamson counties as presented. Any more comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item J, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the assignment of fund balance.
Yes, sir. Almost done having to listen to me. And last month, you guys approved the additional leave days, for COVID. In addition to the 10 federal days, we added 5 local days. And at that time, we talked about assigning fund balance rather than trying to absorb those expenses in the annual operating budget. And this is to assign $405,000 for the payment of subs related to those leave days. That is $305,000 for teaching staff and an additional $100,000 for administrative and support staff. We really don't have any idea how many substitutes this will actually cost, and that's another reason to try not to budget for it. We're fortunate to have the fund balance, so we're asking to assign the $405,000 of fund balance for these expenses, and then the administration will update you guys regularly to see how this is going. We have not had a significant hit on it thus far, but we're 8 days into school, so there's a long way to go. But we would ask the approval of this fund balance assignment.
Thank you for the approval of the assignment of fund balance. Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the assignment of fund balance as presented. Any comments or questions?
Just one question. So this is for the 21 school year going into the year right now, right?
Yes, sir. So it'll be assigned, and hopefully, you know, that's the only year we'll have that additional leave, but we'll go into the year with that money assigned.
Thank you.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item K is, discussion and possible action regarding authorizing the superintendent the authority to obligate Burnett CISD under Chapter 49 for the purchase of attendance credits, netting Chapter 48 funding.
Yes, sir. So this is the same thing we had to do for Chapter 41. And House Bill 3 changed, recapture in Tier 1 excess enough to where it was different chapters in the education code. So now there's a Chapter 49 agreement. And so we will receive more state funding than we have to send back. So we will net the difference. So we won't have to cut a check. We'll just have a reduced amount of money sent to us. And this is authorizing, Keith to go into TEA and click the button saying, yes, the board gave me the power to do this. The lady from TEA is active on email, so there's a chance she's listening right now on the other end to make sure.
I have literally gotten an email every day from Kim Wall at TEA saying, you haven't pushed the button yet, I need you to push the button. because they're so nervous that we have our meeting today. The deadline is today.
And we explained to her, you want us to take this to the board, please give us an opportunity to do that. But she is saying.
Got her dialed up, ready to put?
But like I said, she may be on the phone because she's keeping an eye on it, but, we would ask for the approval of the way to handle the excess revenue.
I move to authorize the superintendent to obligate Vernon CISD under chapter 49 for the purchase of attendance credit, dating chapter 48 funding.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion is made and seconded to authorize the superintendent to obligate Vernon CISD under chapter 49 for the purchase of attendance credits. Comments? Questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Go push the button.
Time out to get item L, discussion and possible action regarding approval of a vendor for district-wide concrete, paving, and block work.
Mr. Goble, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. About the last 5 years, we've been approving a concrete vendor as well as a painting vendor for future projects that we may need so that we can act quickly for our campuses and allow them to get a quality product done in a timely fashion. So with that in mind, approval of the concrete vendor would allow the administration to negotiate projects with a primary vendor for the district-wide concrete projects without issuing an RFP for the project. But of course, the approval of these expenditures would follow all district policies. So on August the 4th, we ran an ad for this on August 5th, 12th, and the 19th for the RFP for the district-wide concrete. We received requests from two companies, the Maldonado Construction and Myers Concrete Construction. Both companies had very good records, and their pricing is within the district standards. Maldonado was the lower bid of the two, so it is the recommendation of the district that we would approve Maldonado Construction as our first approved contractor and Myers Concrete Construction LP as the second contractor to provide district-wide concrete work for 2021 school year.
So that would prevent us from having to bid it on work that exceeds $50,000. The other piece to that, though, is that even with them being an approved vendor, we're still going to get a bid from or a quote from them on what a project would cost, because different projects present different challenges, and so we still can go out and get pricing from other vendors if we need to. In this case, we're going to have two people that will put in pricing so that we get best value for the district.
And I would add similarly, this does not do away with the $25,000 requirement. The board still has to approve that project. And also, this gives us some prices where the folks have to be competitive from the beginning. So it kind of locks them in at a competitive price from the get-go, even if it's a small project early in the year.
So do they give you a price per yard?
Right, so they'll do flat work for, well, go ahead, Charlie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's, on the concrete, there's approximately, I don't have it in front of me, but about 20 items that we asked them to request, depending on, 3.5 inch thick concrete, 6 inch concrete, 8 inch concrete. We've detailed the type of rebar that has to be in there, as well as corner fittings, menagerie of things that they give us either a cubic foot price or a square foot price for.
Move to approve the vendors for the district-wide concrete and paving and block work.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve Maldonado Construction as the approved contractor and Myers Concrete Construction LP as the secondary contractor to perform district-wide concrete, paving, and block work for the 2021 21 school year. Comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item M is discussion and possible action regarding approval of vendor for district-wide painting work. Let's go.
Again, this would allow us to negotiate projects for painting, as well as drywall work. The district did send out advertised on the August 4th, 5th, 12th, 19th, and all proposals were due on August 20th, 2020. We had two companies that did request the RFP. That was Clint Wright Paving and MJ Coatings. On the Thursday, the August 20th, 2:30, the district only received one response, and that was Clint Wright Painting. And their price is in line with the standard, and they are also the contractor that we've been working with for the last 5 years and have done an outstanding job for us, including coming in the evenings and painting classrooms and putting it back in place so the students could work in their classroom that next day, and no additional cost to their RFP for doing that extra work. So it is the administration's recommendation that we approve Clint Wright Painting as our approved vendor to perform district-wide painting and drywall work.
He has literally taken pictures of walls in classrooms, removed everything, painted it, and put it back up. And no, I mean, still the cheapest vendor that has ever bid our painting work, so. Remarkable.
I move for the approval of Light Painting as the approved vendor to perform district-wide painting work.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve Clint Wright Painting, mascot, as the approved vendor to perform district-wide painting work. Johnny, just a quick question. I know there's a lot of different varieties of paints out there. When you're doing something like this, does the school or the district recommend the paint, or do you rely on the contractor?
Yes, we actually do, and we've been following what we've done with our bonds so that we hold to the same type of paint and the same color scheme, so that we can get a consistent scheme going through the district. Another thing I would add is it's really nice that these two have been our primary vendors for the last 5 years, and it's really nice to be able to say that we have two local people that are giving us the best prices out there.
That's great. Comments, questions anymore? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Get this to personnel, Ms. Gilmore.
So on the personnel, there's a personnel report attached, and so it has some of those last minute remaining teachers that we hired, and then of course we hired a lot of instructional partners to finish out and get the school year started. So that is an update on personnel.
Or just a quick question, are these the replacements for those, I forgot what campus they were on, the teachers decided to leave?
No, those teachers actually, we will begin interviewing here shortly. Those teachers are actually going to remain on staff until we have found a replacement for them. So we have not accepted their resignation as of yet.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else?
Now, just a reminder that September 10th, we'll be here for 6 o'clock for my summative evaluation, and you all have a email of the document, and you've got a paper copy of the document. Take with you.
Good to see everybody again. Y'all have a great week.
Good.
September 11th, I go for the interview for TABC.
Yes. Oh, good.
Where is that done?
Zoom. Oh, Zoom.
Oh, it's on Zoom.
Something. I don't think I'll unseat, but